Alright, YouTube, just got out of the shower, and I'm out on the breezeway so as not to bother people, so it's a bit cold. So I might get a little like that. Anyway, Christopher Dorner, big dude out in California, killed a bunch of cops, well, a few cops, and other people, then fled into the mountains, into the desert, wherever. Everyone's up in arms about it. Here are my thoughts about the Christopher Dorner case, and it may be I'm not sure what people on YouTube are talking about. If you go on any of the news stories, you'll see the top comments for every news story are, why isn't the media talking about the people injured by the LAPD? The media just wants to report, here's this psychopathic black dude wandering around in Los Angeles area, slaughtering people as he goes. But they ignore the fact that the LAPD, what did they do? They injured 3 people, actually I think 4 now, ambushed and shot up a couple of pickup trucks without even determining whether it was actually the target they were looking for. Just opened fire, 40 shots something fired into one of these pickup trucks, injuring a couple of, women, injuring some other dude that was just wandering around. These people, I don't know whether the LAPD is just completely corrupt or if the corruption comes with a level of ineptitude, but that seems to be what these people are doing. And the public understands this now, that the LAPD is racist. There is racism among the police forces out in that area. There's corruption there. Anyone with a working mind, here's my ultimate thought here. Reasonable people who have rational, well-thought-out minds, who have the ability to reason to at least a rudimentary level, understand that the police in the United States, while they're definitely good police officers, they attempt to protect people, uphold the law, and so forth. And they have kindness and they're benevolent individuals. Have to understand, especially in urban areas, and I think people who don't live in large urban areas sort of miss out on this. Within urban areas particularly, the police are generally thugs. And it's not through the fault necessarily of the little cops, so much as the higher-ups who oversee these little cops. Because there's been corruption in these organizations that dates back decades and decades, in some cases centuries. Because these people, the higher-ups, they take kickbacks, and they divide it amongst themselves, drug money especially, from cartels, from smaller gangs. They say, well, they're going to deal drugs. We can't stop the drugs. And part of it is the government's fault for not realizing that the police aren't capable of handling this themselves. They can't stop the drugs. So what they attempt to do is they say, well, you pay us from your drug money, and we'll sweep it under the rug, and we won't harass you too much. You can deal in these areas, and we won't kill any of you. You don't kill any of us. You keep your murdering of civilians to a minimum, and you're all set. Christopher Dorner, I think, and this is my thought on it, knows more than we think he knows. I do not think that this is really about just racism. I think he somehow stumbled upon, I don't know, maybe he saw one of the higher-ups taking money from a cartel member or something. I'm not sure. Somehow he probably came upon knowledge that the LAPD would not want to go public. Why else would they have Apache helicopters and drones and millions of dollars of resources a day being pumped into finding one person? Do you honestly believe that they care enough about the people of Los Angeles who have been languishing in high crime for decades now? Do you really think they care about these people enough to mobilize that kind of resource base for the protection of the citizenry? No. Some of the small beat cops, they might actually care about the public. You're not going to find that with the higher-ups. And if you don't think that Dorner's claims are true, I hate to break it to you, yes, there's plenty of racism and bigotry within the LAPD, just as there is within any urban police force, and most smaller police forces as well. Most people understand this is the way police work. This is the way that it works and comes down. If the law system is good, because remember, police aren't there necessarily to protect you. They're there primarily to uphold the law and make sure that the citizens don't break the law. Unless someone's trying to kill you, it doesn't extend as far as protecting you. Most of the time, cops are busting potheads. That nonviolent drug offenses make up a very large proportion of the crimes that they go after. Who do you think has been lobbying the government to keep drugs illegal? It's primarily cops and jailers and the people who administrate them, and they have a lot of money because there are a lot of prisons in the country. Their job is to uphold the law, not to protect you. Therefore, if the laws are sound, if they make sense, if they're reasonable, if they're written in such a manner that the vast majority of the population won't break those laws, you have no problem. What do we have in this country? We have an antiquated drug law system that started in the 1920s, the Prohibition era, saying that you can't smoke weed, you can't use psychedelics even for spiritual purposes. You can have those mushrooms growing in your backyard, but if you eat one, you're going to prison for 5 years. You can't grow marijuana, you can't use it for herbal purposes, you can't do any of these things. There's a third of your crimes in the United States right there. If you get arrested, you get a 1 out of 3 chance that it was for something nonviolent and drug related. You've got an antiquated sex law system. You've got a system by which they're prosecuting hookers who, through no fault of their own, were forced into the trade. They're prosecuting and here's the ultimate kicker: they go after some 20-year-old who has a 15-year-old girlfriend. But if you've got a computer full of child pornography, they don't give a shit most of the time. And if you're raping your daughter, most of the time you won't get caught. There's your problem. We've got an outdated sex crime system. We've got an outdated system as far as self-defense goes. The system is out, except in Indiana. Props to Indiana for being the one state to actually take a stand on this. Did you know this? That unless you are in the state of Indiana, if a cop breaks into your home while uniformed and starts raping your wife and you beat him over the head with the shovel, you are the one who is going to get charged? It is actually illegal to defend yourself from a police officer physically in this country. That's actually illegal. Even if if they're drunk off their ass and start a fight, anyone who throws a punch at them gets in trouble. Yes, they'll get in trouble too, but you're going to jail anyway because you assaulted an officer of the law. You killed an officer of the law, whatever. Can you say police state, people? Can you say that there's a problem here? You can't even defend yourself against these individuals. California is looking more and more like a martial law situation. The cops they've got out there, they're not just regular beat cops with pistols. They've got fully armored individuals that look more like soldiers out there. They don't even look like SWAT team officers. They look like legit soldiers walking through the streets with assault rifles. And yet you have at the same time, well, they want to ban you from owning assault rifles. There's another problem. Well, we can stop all these problems by taking guns out of people's hands, but Dorner was on the LAPD. He was also a Navy SEAL. He had all sorts of weapons. What about military base areas? Well, let's say that some military person has PTSD and goes nuts. Well, he can just log into the weapons area and, drive a pickup truck with anything he wants out of it and go on a blitzkrieg. He could kill 200-300 people. And people would be disarmed. They couldn't even stop him. There's another problem. Dorner stumbled upon some sort of knowledge that the LAPD doesn't want you to know. It could be drug-related, it could be sex-related, it could be government-related. We're not sure. There are about 5 different versions of his manifesto floating around. I distrust them all because you've got no way of knowing which one's the original. It could be that the long version with the political spiel is the correct version, or it could be that the shortened version is correct, the one that doesn't contain such, content. We have no way of knowing. And if you go on the internet, onto forums or chat rooms or whatever, and talk about this, you'll notice something else that's very strange. And you can actually see it alluded to on whitehouse.gov at one point, the fact that, and this is something that we know that they've been doing for a while, it's not a tinfoil hat theory, it's something that's well documented. They actually go online and they actually spread disinformation about these cases just to keep people from, revolting or something. I think it would be hilarious if the people of Los Angeles revolted, rose up and, beat on the police a little bit, Rodney King style. I think it'd be hilarious, because it's what they deserve. Of course, then you've got the other problem. The police are taught to fear the people, and the people fear the police. They have to. It's part of the job description. That's just the way it works. So the people get edged further and further into tyranny in a police state, and the police, they feel like the people become the enemy almost. That's the other problem. The police actually view people, the citizens, as possible enemies. They're walking down the street. They know that they're a target. They've got the badge on. They've got the gun by their side. Well, what if someone just hates cops and wants to air them out? I don't envy their job, and I don't think they're all bad people. But in urban areas particularly, like in LA, you've got the problem of, yes, there is corruption there. So even if all the beat cops, even if 100% of the little guy cops were good people, and they weren't corrupt, and they didn't take drug money, and they didn't drink and beat their wife, and they didn't, molest their daughter, they didn't do anything wrong, they were perfect, upstanding, wonderful citizens. Simply by virtue of being told what to do by higher-ups, they would be corrupt. And this is a principle we see at work in the government, with police, in businesses, among the citizens, any aspect of life you can imagine, that power corrupts. Power can turn a perfectly good person into a completely despicable person. It doesn't always do that. There are people with power that actually care about the citizens and care about their family and care about their friends, and they do the right thing, but not a lot of them. More often than not, they go completely berserk with their power and their money, and they, tell people what to do and destroy people. And they get competitive, and then they destroy their competitors too, and they watch as the world is in flames around them and laugh and dance around on the ashes. This is a recurrent problem. How do you structure a government or a police force or anything else and give them any sort of authority without corrupting them? The answer is you can't. The only answer is the cyclical nature of things itself, the ability to change. That's why we have a government which changes from time to time. It's not a perfect system, but it is better than tyranny, admittedly. It's better than oligarchy, but it still has to be changed from time to time through violent means. Dorner, I think, understands this. I think what he's trying to do, and we'll see if I'm right here, I think he's hiding out waiting. He's waiting for the LAPD to go back to its sloppy, usual, inept nature. Then he's going to kill a few more of them. Just random beat cops. He's going to air them out and then drive off. The LAPD is going to get more and more paranoid. I think his hope is to start riots. That eventually people, because the LAPD will keep making mistakes, they'll keep shooting civilians, they'll keep injuring people, there'll be tussles and they'll beat on people. I think what he's counting on is people essentially rising up and demanding that the whole LAPD be fired. And I wish him good luck in doing that in many ways, because it would actually be beneficial to the people of this city if that were to happen. And the worst thing is this. There are still plenty of people out there who think that the cops are always the good guys. The law is always good. You break the law, you're a bad person. You shoot a cop, you must be a terrible person. Well, if that cop was beating on your girlfriend, you would think differently, but of course nobody thinks about that till it happens to them. But it doesn't happen to most people, so we remain in the minority, those of us who don't trust the police and who don't trust the government. Even worse are the people who go on forums and news stories and shit and start talking about, oh, well, this is the Democrats' fault for X, Y, and Z. Oh, this is the Republicans' fault for X, Y, and Z. Actually, it's both of their faults for X, Y, and Z. It's both of their faults for being corrupt and stupid. We've got a government right now that's too focused on killing civilians with drones and censoring the internet to deal with the budget problem. That should give you a clue as to how efficient they really are. Not at all. These people are no more intelligent than any random sampling of the population. They may have master's degrees and PhDs from Harvard and Yale. They're still no more intelligent than the average people. Those titles are meaningless. Some of these people barely squeaked by when they were in college. Some of them don't even have a college education. On the state level, certainly most of them don't. There you've got the problem. These are regular people that are endowed with special power for no reason other than they got elected by other people who were just normal, everyday people. They're not an intellectual elite. They're not a spiritual elite. They have, in many cases, no clue what they're doing. They're sitting there, oh, what the fuck, Vietnam? How do we handle this? Well, let's drop some bombs. I saw it on a cowboy movie. The budget? What's that? I don't even know how to add in my head. These people are useless. That's why you've got problems right now. You've got a government, you've got police forces, and a military that's composed of normal people. They make mistakes. And it's no fault of their own. Nobody could do better, but they can at least try to be a little less corrupt than to sit around talking about let's censor the internet and Obama saying, well, let's kill citizens with drones now overseas. Well, guess what? If God forbid you should go over to Egypt as a tourist and don the traditional garb and they think that you're a terrorist and, fire a missile through your chest that blows up in front of you and spatters you all over a building. God forbid that should happen, but you know that it will eventually because mistakes happen. And kudos to Dorner for being the one person with the balls to actually go up against the LAPD and to talk about things like this. He gets respect. Yes, I respect him, despite the fact that he's killed people. Just as the average person respects the troops, whose sole purpose overseas is to kill people. Or the police, who kill bad people, supposedly. Or the government, who executes bad people, supposedly. You have all sorts of killing. All that normal people have done is differentiate in a rudimentary fashion between good killing and bad killing. In reality, there's no such thing. It's all good and bad because it all is done for a purpose, but it's also bad because you've still killed somebody. And you can take comfort at night with your badge thinking, well, I killed someone who was dealing drugs to middle schoolers. You still killed them. They still died in pain and went off to the void somewhere and stopped existing or went to hell. They're still dead. You can sleep soundly at night knowing that you were killing enemy combatants, but they're still dead. You can sleep, if you're Dorner, he can sleep soundly at night thinking that the people he killed were corrupt. He still killed them. That's the way the system works. Ultimately, nobody should be killing anybody else, and we should all live in harmony because we should be smart enough to get past these things, but that's utopian and doesn't work. Guess what? This is a dirty world filled with horror, disease, violence, and poverty. This is a terrible place to spend your physical existence. In general terms, there's enjoyment to be had, but you have to worry constantly about dying, and someday you will die. So Dorner is doing no differently than anyone would do under a stressful situation. Get fired by the LAPD, get honorably discharged from the Navy SEALs. Well, what am I supposed to do with my life? I got let go of because other people were stupid. I don't blame him. I don't think any reasonable person would blame him for what he's doing. And that's my thoughts on it, essentially. I got a little long-winded there, but it's an interesting and important issue. People have got to know, no, the cops aren't the good guys. Nobody's a good guy. You shouldn't trust anyone just because they have a badge. Or, they're allowed to carry an assault rifle around. Why the hell would you trust them? They're just average people. People are too simplistic to move on past this rudimentary definition of good and evil, thinking that that badge marvelously makes them a wonderful person. Despite the fact that, guess what? They still grew up and got boo-boos and they have to go poo-poo and pee-pee just like any other normal person. So Dorner gets kudos, and while I can't say I support him killing people, I can certainly understand his reasoning. I think many of you